as we all learned, that trial and tribulations teach us more than the good times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And they
Yes.
teach you more about ourselves
Yeah.
more than anything else.
Yeah.
You know, but people, it's not about judging people, it's more about what did this bring out in me, you know, that I need to be dealing with.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Farah Ali Show, where we dive deep into the minds of accomplished entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Farah Ali, and be ready to gain valuable insights as we take you on a journey of inspiration and wisdom. Today's guest, we have Dr. Syed Ali and Dr. Fatima Ali, both retired psychiatrists who have been practicing for over 35 years. Both are Distinguished Life Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association. They are leaders in the community in every aspect and have been influential in the development and growth of individuals as well as communities. Enjoy the show. So thank you so much, Dr. Ali and Dr. Zahra Ali, so much for coming on my podcast. I'm delighted that you're here. I'm so looking forward to hearing about, your experiences. And I did want to focus on leadership. That's kind of going to be, what we're going to talk about a little bit. But before we talk about that, can you, both of you kind of just give a little brief background of what you do?
So I'll start with that. I was born in Pakistan, and so my dad was a military person and my mom was a physician. And we traveled a lot because of him being in the army, traveled in different places. We did visit United Kingdom as well as Thailand and USA and other places. So I had an experience with traveling. But my mom's major goal was for me to become a doctor. So that was my focus in life, to become a doctor. So then I came to Chicago in 1983. I started my residency in Chicago at Loyola University Medical Center for 4 years. And then 87, I became a psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist, okay.
Yes.
And Dr. Syed Ali.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, it's a privilege and honor that you invited us today over here. I feel very blessed about that. So my situation is that I was born in India, actually, in Bombay. And at the age of 7, my parents moved over to Pakistan. My father was a biochemist who had spent a lot of years in Germany, actually, from a very early age. And my mother was one of the earlier lawyers from Lucknow. In those days, women actually did not go into these types of professions. And she did not practice law after getting married, and she was taking care of the family and the children. So I grew up in Karachi in Pakistan, and subsequently then I went to medical school over there. I graduated in 1972, and almost within a few months I was given the opportunity to come and work over here. So that is how I started life in Chicago in January of 1973. And initially my training was for 1.5 years in surgery and OB-GYN and all that. Then a year in neurology at Cook County Hospital, and then subsequently I did a residency in psychiatry, which was for another 3 months. Another 3 years. And then since then I've been in practice, so almost about 39, 40 years in private practice with Zara and myself. And she joined me later, of course. And we both, actually, I feel very honored that the American Psychiatric Association gave us the highest award for a psychiatrist, for myself and subsequently also for Zara. So that's brief and short about myself.
Thank you. Thank you for telling us a little bit about yourself. So the reason why I invited you as guest was because I wanted to do a piece on leadership. I feel like there's lack of leadership in our communities, and I wanted to bring to the surface how people can become strong leaders. And I felt that both of you were a great example of leadership. I don't know anyone that I've ever met that knows you that has not one negative thing to say about both of you. Both of you are very well accomplished. You've had your own practices. You do so much for the community. You're constantly giving great advice to people, whether it's investments, whether it's psychiatry, whether it's life, whatever the case is, right? So I feel like a lot of people have been able to take so much from both of you and been able to apply it to their lives. And there would be no better couple than both of you to interview on this. So I feel like both of you are great role models, and that I want people to model you as individuals, as professionals, as entrepreneurs, as people who give back to the community. And even as a married couple, you guys always make us laugh. So it's really, really great. But kind of shifting to that focus, why do you think, what have you both done? Like, what type of inner work have you both done to be able to be who you are today?
Do you want to go?
You go for it.
Okay. So the inner work actually is always going on. And I'm 76 now. And I actually, before I went to medical school, I actually was working in a poultry farm that I had started as a business in Karachi. And when you interact with people, when you see where the world is going, fortunately, I had some qualities about me that did really help me. I was an extremely curious individual. I would think outside the box. And my parents were very, very supportive of the fact that I should explore rather than just follow. So that helped me tremendously. And subsequently then, as I went into medical school and started seeing a lot of patients who suffered from a lot of miserable situations, which a physician understandably gets involved with, I started also thinking about what is my role in this world, in this life. And is Pakistan the only country for me, or is this world my country? So I started thinking broadly about all these things, and I started also exploring religions, different types of religions, different types of philosophies, and all that. So I was fortunate enough to find some types of roots. I also had some friends of my father's who were psychologists and psychiatrists, one of whom was tremendously influential on my decisions later on in life, professionally. Mm-hmm. His name was Dr. Zaki Hassan, and he was a professor at Jinnah Postgraduate Medical Center. So from all of that, I think the most important thing that I would attribute my success to, whatever I have achieved, is the fact that I try to put myself in the shoes of the other person and what their needs are, how are they suffering, what are they needing that I can help with. There is also a philosophy called existentialism that I've also been influenced with. Mm-hmm. So that's basically in a nutshell.
So from just recapping, being open-minded, being inquisitive, and being empathetic.
Absolutely.
Because I noticed that both of you, whatever situation anyone's in, you don't judge.
Yes.
And I think that's a part of where empathy, comes from.
True, yeah. Actually. And when I came to the United States, I came through a Greyhound coach, actually, not by plane. And I came through Canada. I stayed in there for about three months or so in different places. That was nothing to do with medicine. There were some friends and relatives. And I came with about almost $250 in my pocket at the Greyhound coach station in Dearborn Street in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So I can always relate to those who are trying to aspire to do anything in life. And if I can make a difference in their life, I think that makes me sleep better at night.
What about you?
My main... I was thinking and have been thinking about my journey being raised in Pakistan, which is a very conservative background, conservative society, religiously, culturally raised. I was raised very protective. So, and so that I think in some ways I would say hindered my progress when I was there in Pakistan. Mm-hmm. But I always had aspirations to do something more for myself and for people at large. And even at home, I would be the person who would listen to people's problem, my mom's issues or dad's problems or whatever it is. I was the one who was more of a listener and had the empathy for what they were going through. But I would say my main blossoming happened when I came to United States. And that was in 1981. And where I were confronted, or I had to deal with passing a lot of exams to get into residencies, and that was the motivator that I got to achieve that. I have to achieve that to do something in life. And that resulted in a lot of challenges for me, and so the inner work was there, that which I would say was self-esteem issues were there. That will I make it? And if I don't pass it, I'm a failure. I won't be able to do it. So that was the initial work that I had to do with myself to improve my self-esteem and the courage to be able to take the exam, and I passed them. That was improved my sense of accomplishment, and then to apply for residency. So like I tell my kids also that I applied for 100 residencies, out of which I got 10 interviews after calling them, and out of which I got one residency at Loyola. So that was a big accomplishment for me, and with no help from anybody. So that really boosted my self-esteem that I can really accomplish. And I wanted to go into psychiatry because that was my passion to do that, because I would say that it was at that time even very underserved community in general. And then my main interest has been in women's issues, which was again a very underserved and still is underserved community. So that got me very much motivated to go into the field further. And so I did also came in with basically some bags of clothes and maybe $100. That's about it, to come to Chicago, and I started my life here.
So if she hadn't had that accomplishment, I would not have met her, actually.
That's funny. So it seemed like when you kept accomplishing whatever those milestones were, right? That you were going through, that continued to increase your self-esteem.
Yes.
So would you say that people should just always try to get out of their comfort zone constantly so that they can continue to increase their self-esteem?
Yes, and I would say that was one thing at that time I didn't realize I was doing what I was doing, because I was not in psychiatry yet. The learning tools were not there. But one way would have been that I back off and not even face these challenges, that just in case I failed, then what's going to happen? So one option was that. The other option was to face the challenges. And so those are the crossroads you're always at, that, you face the challenges, you face vulnerability, or you don't. And at that time, unknowingly, now the technique, what I used was that to face the vulnerability, to face that what if I failed, I can do it again. I can go for the exam again, and not to take it personally that I failed because I'm not smart. And that was a big kind of dilemma, or at that time, to which path to take. So as I said, unknowingly, professionally, but that's the path that I always had, that feeling of what's tomorrow for me? What is it tomorrow? The curiosity of tomorrow is what kept me going.
That actually makes a lot of sense. So how would you define a good leader?
I think it is more of a situation who really tries to understand the needs of the community, of the ones who are led, and who is, by his own example or her example, able to convey a sense of security, a sense of success, a sense of understanding that failures and challenges are part and parcel of life, and how do you find solutions for them, and how do you find the opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities that can give you more success. Those are some of the things. And if you look at those individuals who have been either military leaders or other types of leaders, like politically and so on and so forth, you do find these types of qualities across the board. So that would be my thinking about it.
My thought would be resilience. I feel that resilience is one factor that it really keeps you going. To acquire that resilience and persistence, that if you give up, there are two choices for you. Either you live as a victim or you live as a survivor. And you can't live as a victim with failure and saying that it's all me and I failed and have all or none thinking, and it really makes you weaker as a psychic force. It's kind of weak It makes you feel weak. Versus survivor is more of that you're swimming. You're swimming and there's hope to it, what next day is going to bring about. So that to me is very important. Curiosity is another one, that constantly be curious about what's tomorrow going to bring for me, which path can I take, what calling do I have. Those kind of things are very important to acquired leadership skills.
Do you think that leaders, like the best of leaders that we've seen, in history, or any examples that you have around you, are ones that focus on their own goals and accomplishments, or are they there to serve others, or a combination of both, would you say, is like the key?
My thought would be a combination, because, you have to have the empathy, you have to have the leadership skills come from people around you too, that what they contribute to your leadership. So having the right people around you to achieve a certain goal is extremely important, to hear them out, to listen to them, and then, giving your input to it, and you're carrying the whole group with you. So they have to look up to you, look up to your problem-solving skills, and look up to your integrity, trust, all of that stuff, that you're carrying the whole group with you. So I think those are important. Both of them are important skills.
And the leader is more like a teacher, a guru, somebody who the people, the community can look up to and have respect for, have loyalty for. And that only comes about if the leader is able to understand that without the leader being able to understand the needs of that group and the goals of that group, and blend with that, I think that is very helpful in achieving those types of things. Without which, in other words, the individual success is the success of the group, and vice versa.
What I noticed about both of you is that you don't carry an ego. And, I never, like when you're talking to people, like, I'm up here, the other person's down here, like there's none of that I feel that's going on. How did you guys, how are you able to manage your egos? Because again, you're very successful and also, very experienced. And so how are you able to manage situations where, you're able to humble yourself all the time?
I think some of it would be, I would say, some personal challenges in life that has been helpful in introspection and bringing us into being humble. And also the training that you go through as far as psychiatric training, there's a lot of that introspection is involved, that, you are even talking to an adolescent patient. It would be that you have to talk to them at that level, that they don't feel that you're at a parental level, talking down to them. So then naturally right away they shut you off, because they've heard it from the parents, they've heard the lectures from the parents, so they shut you off. So that is one thing important that during training I learned, is that not to judge people, because there are different circumstances people are living with. And I had some examples in the emergency room where a patient came with his wife and his girlfriend, and they were all living in the same house. And it was, again, my professor taught me at that point that you can't judge. Actually, the husband was so disabled that nobody could take care of him. And so that's why the arrangement they had made together, that they are taking care of each other rather than a weird relationship going on. So that kind of brings you down to that, yes, don't judge the book by the cover. And so that all those experiences in dealing with people, that sometimes people can come across as very arrogant, and they are really struggling within themselves. So all of those experiences dealing with patients, your own personal experiences, at least that brought me into being much more humble and down to earth.
And to add to that, what I would say also, along with whatever Zara has said, is the fact that being a psychiatrist, you are trying to understand the human mind. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to understand why people do the things they do. In order to do that, you really have to be very open to exploring all the reasons that are going on, rather than concluding prematurely as to what they should be doing, and so on and so forth. So therefore, any morality issues, any issues having to do with their convictions and beliefs, we have to take all of that into consideration rather than pronouncing any judgment on that.
Yeah, I know people judge others, but I think people also judge themselves. And for me, like, that was always a battle for me. Like, I'm constantly judging myself. But, kind of going and studying and introspection and trying to figure out what life is about, who I am, why am I made this way? Why do I have struggles? Why do I have challenges? I realized that all of us humans have a light to us, but we also have a dark part to us. All of us do, right? And I feel like a lot of times we don't want to accept the dark part of us. Like, it exists, but we don't want to focus on it. We just want to put it back in the corner and forget about it because we don't want to feel certain emotions or guilt or whatever it is. But in my journey, what I realized is that's how, as a human, that's how I'm made. And I've been put in situations, and I do have dark parts of me because for my journey, it's taking the dark parts of me and transforming them into light within ourselves.
Yes.
And so, so I feel like I think more people, like, just accepting that, hey, I do have some challenges with myself. I'm not perfect, and I do have that. And it's okay. That's how it's meant to be. But bringing it up to the surface and working on it has really, really helped me being able to kind of, like, understand other people and understand myself. And the more I understand myself, I feel like the more I understand other people. And I become even more empathetic. So I don't know if that's something that, like, you could shed light on, is that maybe you've experienced, but that's my personal journey.
And you're absolutely right, Farah, and that is that once you go through some of the journeys of life, and if you start introspecting, because if is a big question, because some of us don't want to go into the uncomfortable zone of ourselves, the dark part, like you said, of ourselves, which everyone has. And there will be some part that will still stay dark till the end of our life. But at least be open to slowly dealing with it and saying what is coming in my way of what I want to achieve in life. I think that is an important thing to look at, that at any stage of life, and that can be younger, older, people, that at any age of your life, what do you need to make peace with? What do you need to come to terms with it, that I have achieved what I have achieved, and not only achievement, the external achievement, internal achievement. What have I grown into? Do I like what I'm growing into? Do I want to grow more? And that is important, because and sometimes professional help is needed for that, to go to people to discuss it through, to grow from that. So I think that is critical, because we're all living the same life. Right? How I see it, we are climbing the same mountain of life, right? It's just that we are at different places in that climb, and sometimes we drop back, we have setbacks, and then we pick ourselves up with coping strategies and everything, and we start climbing again. And some of us are here, some of our different levels of that life. That's about it. So I think understanding that makes it much more empathy for people, and to understand what they're going through, because maybe you've been through that before.
Yeah, and in your example, when you're talking about we're all, like, climbing the same mountain, I feel like a good leader, works on themselves and is climbing that mountain, maybe at a more rapid pace than the average person, but they're bringing everybody with them.
Agreed,
Yeah, and that to me is like a true leader.
Yes, and to look at the other people's skill set, where they are, rather than judging them, helping them grow so that they can come ahead also, in their lives and achieving the goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to add to that, whenever I have a tendency to go towards the black hole, I remember a saying which I started hearing when I started practicing as a psychiatrist, and that had to do with Alcoholics Anonymous. And they have a prayer called Serenity Prayer, which goes by, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's not a very prolonged prayer. It is from Saint Francis of Assisi. And again, I'm not trying to promote any particular religious belief or anything of the sort. Whatever appeals to me, I incorporate that. And this has been extremely helpful. It's a very simplistic type of philosophy that in terms of acceptance, as you're going, whenever I face problems, challenges for my own personal self, or if I feel miserable, sad, I try to understand that as to how can I deal with that. And this has been very helpful.
You know, I've been working in corporate for a long time, and, you know, we also know who's kind of running these countries and stuff like that. I feel like there's a lot of failed leadership at even a high level, even at like corporations, you know, and politically and all of that. What do you think is missing? Like, why is that the case?
Do you want me to? Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think that certainly there's a big divide that we see in the philosophies of how our leadership, particularly in America, is heading. And it's very prevalent on the news. So I think that that when we start thinking of ourselves more than the community that we belong to, then I think there is naturally going to be a problem, you see. And America, for example, is not just the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, but if they don't come to terms, if they don't understand that they are representing the whole community, the whole population, then there's going to be division in terms of the goals, in terms of what they're going to accomplish. And that is where the leadership really is going to be challenged, and very strongly. It's like having a civil war in a way. Mm-hmm. And that is not necessarily healthy. It sort of takes you back, both from the point of view of how you can achieve as a nation certain goals that are very important, economic as well as others.
So it's more of a selfish approach that they're taking from what, you know, it's either fame or how much more money can I make, or, you know, whatever that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you see a different type of profile when you go to European countries, you see.
I would say that to briefly use the term individualism, mm-hmm. It's become very individualistic. And that's world at large. Everybody's become very much individualistic. I think COVID helped people, at least to some extent, look at that we become so individual, that only focus on our individuals rather than we needed the family support. Mm-hmm. And people came with families at that time and supporting each other. And I think we are going back into that individualism, that being islands. Mm-hmm. And when you're so individualistic, or you're so in the negative part of COVID did that was that people were working from home. So the connection that you have with people, being online connection, is nowhere close to having personal connections, because that's what creates the empathy with each other. When you know somebody, when you don't know somebody, they live or die, you don't care about that. But when you know somebody, it does matter to you what they're doing and how they're doing. So I think that is what I see, more individualism coming in generally in the world, more individualistic. And the leaders come from that. Usually they say the leaders represent the population, because that's where they're coming from. We are the one choosing them to become leaders. So that's what reflects on the society, what it has become, because we chose them.
Yeah, and to add to that also, that, for example, what we were talking about the division in our country in terms of beliefs and what we should be doing politically, I think one of the factors that has to be taken into consideration is the feeling that I can survive well without necessarily promoting the survival of my neighbor or understanding what my neighbor is going through. And if I cannot survive that way, and if my neighbor also thinks similarly, so both of them, all of us then can get together to face a common enemy. Mm-hmm. And that's why whenever we have crises, communities blend together for facing a common challenge.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the leadership stems down to people having insecurities at the end of the day. They don't have enough. They're not enough. They don't have enough money, love, whatever the case is, right? Because so they're not full themselves, so they can't go out there and do things for others. But I just feel that, like, why is it that there's a lot of good people out there.
Yes.
There are. How come they don't come to power?
Yes, and I've thought about that question quite often. And the reason is that if you're talking about getting into politics has become very, very dirty. It's become so much dirt in it that you are pretty much, they'll pick up in everything and blow you apart. So a lot of people, even who came into politics, when they got blown apart and they were in the middle ground people, they were just thrown out of the system because they could not handle the pressure of being critical about them, about each and every move they make, about family, about everything, that I think they just they can't handle the pressure to that.
And I think that there are a lot of good people out there. Probably they're also afraid of what the risks they will encounter if they come to power or if they seek power. And we don't have to go far. We just recently saw President Trump's situation where he was shot. Unfortunately, subsequently recuperated. So the thing is that we have to understand what is needed and required if people really want to become influential and powerful. A lot of leaders all around the world and across history have given up their lives for these types of situations. And that is the way the world has been since the dawn of civilization.
Do you personally have any mentors that you really look up to, or leaders that you looked up to? So
right from the very beginning, I had Dr. Zaki Hassan he was a psychiatrist. I looked up to him. And subsequently, I have had people of different walks of life. They do not necessarily have to be professionals.
Sure.
That have definitely influenced my way of thinking. And I'm very, very influenced by scientists, like astrophysics and all of the different things, to look at it from a very scientific perspective. And I've always respected their opinions and beliefs.
And my mentors have been... through life has been a lot of my friends. They have been very good friends who have been through thick and thin with me, as well as my teachers in the residency period. I think they even dealt with personal stuff that they helped me grow as far as my skills were concerned, as far as my perceptions were concerned. And I would say leaders now, what I see is that people are not wanting to seek power at that level where they'll be, beaten down. People are making smaller groups of empowerment. So as psychiatrists, empowering the people that we came in touch with, that how to be able to succeed in life. So we are more into smaller groups that we are doing that. As far as even for you, like what you have done with your life, and recently that you're influencing people at whatever level that you can influence, rather than looking at the level of politics and higher up where you could be just blown apart by that pressure.
I would like to add to that also that social media now is a very strong tool that is available to those individuals who may not be able to withstand the pressures of being on stage or a huge crowd of political, through their writings, through their podcasts, websites, etc. They can really provide beliefs and opinions to people who can gain a lot from that.
I actually want to shift a little bit and talk a little bit about a question that I think I'm curious. I mean, I have my own answers, but throughout life, most of the leaders have been, male.
Yes.
And for various reasons. And I want each of you to answer this individually on your own. Do you feel that women could be great leaders?
Can I answer that first, because you are already You,
Go ahead.
okay, so definitely believe that women can be great leaders. And I say that from various aspects. In my own family, my grandmother was from Iran, and at the age of 15, she spoke English in India many, many years ago. My mother herself became an attorney. So these were some role models, some examples in front of me. Then, of course, as I studied history and I looked at a lot of progress in this world is due to the fact that women have taken the initiative of becoming leaders in any way that you look at, from the point of view of art, from the point of view of literature, from the point of view of political empowerment, and so on. So I think that they have already shown the fact that they can be great leaders. And certainly now the world is becoming more liberal and understanding that men have their own problems, and if there's any wisdom in them, that they should understand what they're giving up in terms of the growth of humanity by not recognizing the potentials of leadership in women.
And I would say absolutely yes, that I think if you've seen the evolving role of women, that in World War II was the main time when women came out to work because the men were at war. And since then, that has been an evolving role, because we were in most of the societies, and in some societies even still, live in a very protected kind of settings. So the role was more, and again, we stayed at home, but we were the leaders of the home, managing finances, managing economics, managing kids, their schooling, their, guidance and everything. So we have that skill. It's just that we were doing it at home. And now we are going outside in the corporate America and corporate world or working world. All over the world, this is a changing trend. And so we are able to do it. It's just that the responsibilities have been added on. First, we were at home. Now we have work as well. So I don't know how liberated we have become. In some ways we are financially liberated, but on the other hand, we have additional things in our plate as well. So, but definitely we have the skill set. If we could manage the home, we can manage any part of corporate America or even leadership like presidency.
How do you think if parents want to develop leadership qualities in their children or whoever, around them, how do you think they should start? Like, should they start as soon as they're a child to start developing the qualities, and what should they be doing?
Well, as a mother, I would say that, yes, since childhood, because too much permissiveness for the kids is not good either. There's been studies in that too, that being too permissive and letting them do whatever they want has not been good guidance for them even. And the other one is too authoritarian, where you just tell them what to do, as parents. But the middle ground, where you do set some ground rules, that these are some ground rules that you have to abide by, that has been the best parenting for them. And to encourage them for curiosity, not limit them with certain values that don't make sense to learn with them, as what I was reading about that one growth is when you're personally growing, right? Second growth is when you grow with your kids. Because looking at what time, era, their personalities, what kind of people they are, and how to navigate to help them in their life, rather than telling them what to do. And so that's the second growth, because if we do not grow with them and understand them, then their growth gets stunted and they're not able to achieve what they want to achieve in life. So that would be my main thing, is to help them being more resilient, not to bash them if there's a failure or if they've done something which could be corrected, to help them coach them is what I feel that as a parent, we should be more of a coach than telling them what to do.
So I'll give an example of a situation that occurred almost about a month and a half ago. A robin laid a made a nest next to the window where I am working. And she laid eggs, and subsequently, father and mother were taking care of these chicks, you see. And initially, they were bringing all types of food. I mean, at that time, it was the cicada season, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
So everything was going very well. They were being fed. But then a time came, I noticed that they would hold the cicada in their mouth and in their beak, and not throw it at the chicks, enabling the chicks to try to pluck them from the beak of the mother or father, you see. And then a time came when there was raining, and they sort of sheltered the chicks underneath them. But then subsequently, when these chicks were ready to fly, we were very concerned that they might just drop down because they were on the second floor. So we put all the mattresses and everything on below, preparing for their arrival, or actually graduating. Let's put it that way. Lo and behold, and there were 3 chicks over there. One by one, you see, they were trying to fly because they had developed all the wings and everything. They had all the hardware. But the parents sat quite a distance from there on the trees and were chirping at them and trying to encourage them to fly, you see. Till the last chick they had the most difficult time, but eventually he or she also went forward. The lesson, again, it illustrates the fact that our children will be probably living in a very different world than ours, the one that we grew up in. So if there is a way of being able to having them become good leaders, they need to understand the world by themselves. And by experiencing it, by understanding also failure, challenges, trials and tribulations, that they can use to educate themselves and to discover strengths within themselves, as well as how to succeed in the jungle.
Absolutely. I think both of you guys are both on point with that, because even when I remember when I was younger, I was probably 9 or 10. And, you go through sad moments in life or whatever. And then you're like, okay, if there was a God, why am I going through sad moments, right? So I had my own journey of, is there really a God? Like, I went through that phase myself. Does that exist? And all of that. Eventually, after, doing my own studying and all of that, I came to definitely believe in one. But it was that discovering and that journey that led me to be who I am. Now, I kept this to myself, if there's a God or not, because if I had said that to my parents or anybody else, I don't know what the consequences would have been, right?
True.
At that point. But same thing with one of my sons during their early teenage years was like, I don't even know if a God exists. Now, had I said, oh my God, what are you talking about? That's crazy, and just shut it down, he may not have went through his own journey of exploration, because when you're in research mode, there's so much that's happening to the brain at that point, right?
Absolutely.
And being inquisitive, like you said, and all that. And so he came to his own conclusion, right? But it was his own journey that got him there. And I didn't stunt that growth because I went through the same thing. But I think if parents knew that, like, let them go through their own journey, it's part of their growth process that things.
Yes, and
will
self-discovery,
develop. Yeah.
that kind of is very helpful tool that you come to know that, okay, and as we all learned, that trial and tribulations teach us more than the good times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And they teach you more about ourselves more than anything else.
Yeah.
About people. It's not about judging people. It's more about what did this bring out in me, that I need to be dealing with. So I think that's the critical thing about children, is that being there as people to fall back on if they struggle with it, because otherwise they won't tell you anything. If you're judging them and telling them not to think this way, not to behave this way or feel this way, then it's like they won't share it with you at all, what's going on in their lives. And they'll feel lonely if they feel that they can't share it with their parents.
So Jean Piaget was a child psychologist and was very influential on the growth and development of the children, and he wrote many books. one of his experiments was where there's this thin bottle containing a certain amount of water, and by the side of that thin bottle is also a sort of a cup or something like that, transparent, a glass cup or something. And what he would do is he would transfer the water from one of the bottles to the other one. The other one was a broad one, you see. And up to a certain stage, the children would say, well, the one with the taller, thin, with the taller height had the more water in it, even though it was the same. After a certain point, then they developed, you see, the ability to be able to understand all that. The point is basically that his position, and that also was subsequently Montessori area of thinking, was that we, instead of educating the children, let them discover the world.
And I think that will just continue throughout adulthood and throughout life, because I think we're always, discovering all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
The moment we stop discovering, we are dead. Meaning, even if we are alive, we are not growing.
Yes, absolutely. So just to sum everything up, if there were three main qualities you would say that a leader should have in today's world, what would those qualities or skill sets be?
So I will let you answer that because I'll take some time for me to think.
My thoughts would be curiosity is one, that constantly curious about learning new stuff, and empathy, listening to other people and understanding and not thinking that you're the most intelligent and nobody else can think, and problem solving. These would be, to me, the three qualities that a leader should absolutely have.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. I was actually going to say problem solving, so I did not cheat over here, but I'm trying to be honest. So problem solving in the sense of developing strategies, you see. Secondly, I would also consider the ability to be able to predict where we are going, where the group is going. How is the world going to change? So as an example, if I've got a herd of cattle, where is the next pasture going to be? Without that, my group would. Then the third thing I would think of is self-development, you see, by example. These are the things that come to my mind.
Yeah, and I would say, just to add to that, communication, right? Like being able to deliver a message in a way that can be understood by the people as well. So that's kind of just, something that, like, I feel like you could have all of this inside of you, but if you're not delivering it in the right way,
and you're not speaking the group's language,
correct,
then they won't be able to get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it starts from home, because I was taught earlier on that heaven lies at the feet of your mother. Subsequently, I've added my wife's name to that too. So for whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful speaking with you. I hope that, somebody's able to take some of the stuff that we said and been able to apply it to themselves, to their children, to their family members, and that we all are able to have a great community of leaders, that come out of this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
we
for
feel very
inviting
blessed,
us.
and thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.